we in. We coolin' for the weekend. Drop the top and then we out. We do this every season. Sunshades on sunny days. Doing 80 and we switching lanes.
Hey guys, what's up? It's your boy Trix. Today we're going to be doing another Spring Boot tutorial. So today we're going to be doing Spring Boot and OAuth2. I have a link to this in the description. Sorry that I haven't done that with the other tutorials. I'll start doing that now. So this is the Spring Boot and OAuth tutorial by Spring. Again, sorry you'll be hearing me burp and stuff because my mic boosts that. Don't know how to edit that setting. Anyway, this guy shows you how to build a simple app doing various things with social login using OAuth2 and Spring Boot. It starts with a simple single provider, single sign-on, and works up to a client with a choice of authentication providers, GitHub or Google. I might just do GitHub instead of Google if it's in this tutorial, but we'll see. Samples are all Spring apps, single page apps using Spring Boot and Spring Security on the back end. They all use plain jQuery. Never used jQuery before, so this can be fun on the front end, but the changes needed to convert to a different JavaScript framework or to use server-side rendering would be minimal. All samples are implemented using native OAuth2's 0.0 support in Spring Boot. There are several samples building on each other, adding new features at each step. Simple, a very basic static app with just a homepage and unconditional login via Spring Boot's OAuth2 configuration properties. If you visit the homepage, you will be automatically redirected to GitHub. So if I go to simple, oh, okay. So literally you'll be having me do it as it goes on. Adds an explicit link that the user has to click to log in. Adds a logout link as well for authenticated users. Adds a second login provider so the user can choose on the home page which one to choose. So it's probably going to be like what's it called, like in Versal or something, where it's like login with this and you have like all the options. Custom error codes. Adds an error message for unauthenticated users and a custom authentication based on GitHub's API. The changes needed to migrate from one app to the next in the feature ladder can be tracked in the source code. Each version of the app is its own directory so that you can compare their differences. Each app can be imported into an IDE. You can run the main method in the social application to start an app. They'll all come up with a homepage on localhost 8080 and all require that you have at least a GitHub and Google account if you want to log in and see the content. Now you can also run all the apps on command line using Maven Spring Boot run, or by building the jar and running it with Maven package and java-jar target/star jar. That's just grabbing all of your jar files and making a jar to run with Java. Per the Spring Boot docs and other available documentation, there's no need to install Maven if you use the wrapper at the top level. The app will work on localhost 8080 because they'll use OAuth 2.0 clients registered with GitHub and Google for that address. To run them on a different host or port, you need to register your apps that way. There's no danger of leaking your credentials beyond localhost if you use the default values, but be careful what you expose on the internet and don't put your own app registrations in public source control. I might not put this on GitHub just because of this last bit. Yeah, I might not put this on GitHub, but at least the live stream me making it will be here. Anyway, first you need to create a Spring Boot application, which can be done in a number of ways. The easiest way is to go to that and generate an empty project choosing the web dependency as starting point. You couldn't do this on the command line. Okay, so I'm just going to mk the SSO, Spring SSO. There we are. And then I'm just going to call this. There we go. Why? Seriously. You know what, I'll just go here. Oh, it didn't open in a new one. Okay, so what was that? That was Java, okay. And then artifact -d name simple. I'm just going to call this simple. Simple, that's fine. And then spring boot SSO. I might just go to their repo and see what they name everything, so I can just like make sure all of the comms and everything is correct. Let's go to simple, SRC, main, Java com example, Java com, social application. Social application, social application, social application, social application. I'm not sure if, you know what, I'll just call it social. Because I'm pretty sure it will do like whatever the name is and then application at the end. I'm pretty sure. I'm running $19 and I need, what was it? I need web. I'm pretty sure it's this one. Generate? Question mark? Let me just chuck that into a Spring SSO. Save. Just wait for that to, there we are. And then unzip. There we are. And then rm social. Cool. Okay, I'm just gonna move social up. Yeah. And then mv social. Cool. Now I'm going to rm-rf spring SSO and then mv social to spring SSO. There we go. Nice. I'll open this in IntelliJ just because it'll be easier to debug. I don't want to worry about like dependencies and like imports and stuff. I just want to be able to code. Vim, again, as I was saying before, command line utilities are a lot nicer if you know what you're doing in them. That being said, it's a lot harder when like you're doing a language like Java where it's like, oh, me having to do like imports and like figuring out where that import comes from and then following a couple of classes to figure out what it's doing is a lot more difficult. Whereas in like Rust, you can just, everything is like annotated, so you can just be like, okay, cool, this is what this does, this is what that does. So let me just drag this over to here. There we go. I want to open. I want to open this one. There we are. I don't know why this is still there. There we go. Just need that to load. Is it indexing? Yeah, it's indexing. Takes a long while. I'll just close that and I'll close this. I'm surprised that it keeps saying it's a normal Maven project when it doesn't even give you the option to use Maven in here. Like, where does it say that it's using Maven? Oh, yeah, you literally the default is Gradle, but you have to choose Maven. So I'm guessing like maybe back then when the tutorial was created, it like defaulted to Maven. And now it's not the default anymore, like everybody just uses Gradle. That must mean that the tutorial is kind of old then, which might explain a lot. In your project, create index inside, just need to wait for that to load. src main resources static, and then create a index.html file, index.html. There we go. And then just copy paste this in. Paste as plain text. Cool. None of this is necessary to demonstrate OAuth2 login features, but it'll be nice to have a pleasant UI in the end, so you might as well start with some basic stuff. In the homepage, if you start the app and load the homepage, you'll notice that the style sheets have not been loaded, so you need to add those as well as by adding jQuery and Twitter Bootstrap in the pom.xml. No. Well, I'm not using a pom. So that's a dependency, so I'll probably go here. Let me open up the source code. I want to see how they wrote this one, because then I'll be able to like kind of work out how to write the other ones. It'll be in simple, right? Simple. This pom. How did they write this one? Spring Boot and then colon the thing that they're looking for. And then it'll be colon version. Okay. Okay, I think I can work this out. So in here, I'm just gonna chuck this in this one. It'll be implementation, right? And then it'll be org.webjars colon jQuery colon 3.4.1. There we are. And then we got implementation org.webjars.whoops bootstrap colon 4.3.1. And then this last one org.webjars colon web jars dash locator core, and then I want, oh, it doesn't even need the version number. Cool. So if I pull that, there we go. To find the dependency in the WebJars locator, which is provided as a library by the WebJar site. Spring can use the locator to locate static assets in WebJars without needing to know the exact version. Hence, the versionless WebJars ** links in the index.html. So, just to show that inside here. Why does it do that? It's not in there. Basically, what I was expecting was it will be like this, and then whatever package you want, this, and then like maybe a star, and then / at the end to say like version number or something. But okay, the WebJar locator is activated by default in the Spring Boot app as long as you don't switch off the MVC auto configuration. With those changes in place, you should have a nice looking homepage for your app. Stream the application with GitHub and Spring Security. To make the application secure, you can simply add the Spring Security as a dependency. Since you're wanting to do a social login delegate to GitHub, you should include the Spring Security OAuth 2.0 client starter. So inside my Gradle, again, I need an implementation of org.spring framework.boot. It's not there. Colon spring. Is it going to show up? Nope. There we go. I don't need a version number. Let me just reload that. By adding this, it will secure your app with OAuth2 by default. Next, you need to configure your app to use GitHub as an authentication provider. To achieve this, do the following. Add a new GitHub app, configure application.yaml, and then boot up the application. Okay, so this, it just goes into it. I don't need to click on those links. To use GitHub's OAuth 2.0 authentication system for login, you must first add a new GitHub app. Select new OAuth app, and then register a new OAuth application page is presented. Enter an app and name description, then enter your app's homepage, which should be, I might need to do this. You know what, I'll put up my BRB screen and I'll do this and then I'll come back. It's just because there might be like secret keys that I don't want you guys to see. Let me just check what this page leads to. Yeah, it's gonna ask me to. Okay, I'm gonna put up the BRB screen, and I should have this done in like 2-3 minutes, give or take. Anyway, I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. After doing that, I just need to make sure I don't open up application.yaml. So I'm just going to close this and click on this now. But they're there, just in case. I will delete that, what's it called? That secret key afterwards on GitHub, just in case it somehow does leak. Nothing bad will happen on my GitHub. But anyway, with that change, you can run your app again and visit the homepage at, okay, so if I go to here, and then it's tasks, build, your boot run, no? Build. Oh, you need to actually click run in this. That's what I was forgetting. When you're inside IntelliJ, there's not a boot run. It's just you click the run button. That makes more sense now. Well, I'm building the jar anyway. Just taking a bit. Also, I'm sorry if you can hear like shouting in the background. That is my dad on the phone. Let me just run that. Oh, of course it's going to be like that. I need to actually open up this, don't I? Oh, this is come on. What? Hang on. Interesting. For some reason, I didn't run. I would have to run gradle w boot run, but you know what? I'll do that afterwards. If you stay logged in, you won't need to re-authenticate with this local app, even if you open it in your first browser. No cookies and no cache. That's what single sign-on means. Yeah. It's safe to grant access to this simple sample since only the app running locally can use tokens, and the scope it asks for is limited. Be aware of what you're approving when you log into apps like this though. They may ask for permissions to do more than you are comfortable with, e.g. they may ask you for permission for personal data, which is unlikely to be in your interest. What just happened? The app you just wrote in OAuth2 .0 terms is a client application, and it uses the authorization code grant to obtain an access token from GitHub, the authorization server. It then uses the access token to ask GitHub for personal details, only what you permitted it to do, including your login ID and your name. In this phase, GitHub is acting as a resource server, decoding the token that you send and checking if it gives the app permission to access the user's details. If that process is successful, the app inserts the user details into Spring security context so that you are authenticated. If you look into the browser tools, F12 on Chrome or Firefox, I do not have an F12 key. I think it's like Command Shift C. No, Control Shift C on Linux to open up Inspect Element. And to get to the network, but it doesn't like put you straight into the network tab. You have to click on the network tab. For all the hops you actually, I can test it out. Hang on. Yeah. And then I don't know how to close them besides like clicking this. Anyway. You'll see redirects back and forth with GitHub, and finally you'll land back on the home page with a new set cookie header. This cookie, JSON session ID, is a token for your authentication details for Spring or any serverlet-based application. So we have a secure application in the sense that to see any application, a user has to authenticate with an external provider. We wouldn't want to use that for an internet banking website, but for basic identification purposes and to segregate content between different users of your site, it's an excellent starting point. That's why this kind of authentication is very popular these days. In the next section, we are going to add some basic features to the application. We'll also make it a bit more obvious to users what is going on when they get an initial redirect to GitHub. Add a welcome page. In this section, you'll modify the simple app you just built by adding an explicit link to log in with GitHub. Instead of being redirected immediately, the new link will be visible on the homepage, and the user can choose to log in or stay authenticated. Only when the user has clicked on the link will the secure content be rendered. Conditional content on the homepage. To render content on the condition that the user is authenticated, you have the option of either server-side or client-side rendering. Here you'll change the client-side with jQuery, though if you prefer to use something else, it shouldn't be very hard to translate code. To get started with the dynamic content, you need to mark a couple HTML elements like so. In index.html, so that's in resource static, and you know what, I'm never going in this resource for again. I'm just going to click on this. So I'm just going to check this. This is click, right? So all that is the same in the head, pretty much. It's just this bit that I'm trying to figure out. So it removes that demo and that container div. Okay, so this just copies over this. Okay, and I think it's Control-Alt-L. Okay, never mind. Let me just tab that in there. There we go. By default, the first div will show and the second one, because this is for unauthenticated users and this is for authenticated users. Note also the empty span and ID attribute. Where's that? Oh yeah, this bit here. In a moment, you'll add a server-side endpoint that will return the logged-in user's details as JSON, but first, add the following JavaScript which will hit that endpoint. Based on the endpoint's response to JavaScript, will populate the span tag with the user's name and toggle the div appropriately. So that's this bit underneath it. There we go. And I just need to tab in this bit. There we go. Note that this JavaScript expects the server-side endpoint to be called /user. Okay. Now you'll add the server-side endpoint just mentioned, calling it /user. It will send back the currently logged in user, which we can do quite easily in our main class. So inside our main class here, so I just grabbed this bit here, right? Oh, I need at-rest controller. Always hit the wrong one. There we go. At-rest controller. And then I just need to grab this. Control V. There we are. Alt enter, import. Alt enter, import. Enter. Enter. This one. This one. And that's why I like IntelliJ because it just handles everything for you. Like literally, if you guys saw before when I was in Neovim, it's like I have to handle all of those imports myself and figure out, okay, where does this library come from? Note that the use of at-rest controller at get mapping and the OAuth2 users injected into the handler method. That's just saying that inside here, at-rest controller in this annotation is used. Then at get mapping for when you're actually sending a request to /user, and then OAuth user 2 here is for the authentication principle. When I was talking to one of my seniors, they explained that these annotations are basically just using reflection to say that, oh, you want this to happen. So it's just checking if that, so for like get mapping, it's checking, is that endpoint being called with reflection and then serving something for that, which is the user function. It's not a great idea to return the whole OAuth2 user in an endpoint, since it might contain information you would rather not reveal to a browser client. So like, if you go on GitHub API, their docs, I remember using the API a while ago to like pull in repositories. But if you go over to, and let's just go over overview, because they should have an example of what the API returns. Nah, that's the headers. I want the REST reference doc. I think it's this one. Yeah, this tells you what, yeah, okay, nice. This like doc tells you, okay, cool, this is what could be returned. No, these are just the endpoints that you can call, right? This doesn't tell you what the... I know there's a doc that tells you like, oh, this is what you'll be returned, like if you do an example query. I just can't find it right now. I used it a while ago. Hang on. I just want to, is it getting started? Like, is this the one? I just want to see like what the, using the response, okay. I can't find it right now for some reason. But there is a document that tells you all of the endpoints and like what it does and all. I think it's events. But this, okay, this basically just lists off what you can do with the, and what you can do with the API, right? And there's lots of stuff you can do. So if you just return everything from the API after authenticating, you don't want to see that. You don't want everybody to see that information. You only want like some of that to be seen, or like you only want to show that to someone for some of those things. You don't want them to be able to see everything, right? Like you don't want to, like, I remember there was stuff like repos that you've opened, private, public repos, repos that you've contributed towards, issues that you've opened, issues that you're mentioned in, like stuff like that. And it's like, it's cool because you can have access to all of that data, but also like you don't want everybody to know that, oh yeah, you had these are the names of your private repos, right? Or like you contributed to this repo at this time, or I mean on this date or whatever, like stuff like that. Again, I haven't used GitHub's API in a while, so it may be different now, but what I say kind of stands. Like you don't want to share all of the information that you gathered from your API to everyone, right? Making the homepage public. There's one final change you'll need to make. This app will now work fine and authenticate as before, but still going to redirect before sharing the page. To make the link visible, you also need to switch off the security on the homepage by extending web security configure adapter. So I just need to web security configure adapter. Web security. Oh, I can't find it. Security configure adapter. I don't know if I'll be able to find that. Nah, could not find it. Search for dependency. Web. Let me just copy this because I'm pretty sure it should exist. search for dependency. Okay. Oh, this is the deprecated. Oh, god damn it. Is there at least a package I can use to get it? I'm guessing it's available in version 2 of Spring Boot, right? Oh, that's annoying. Has anybody opened issues for this? 2 weeks ago, can you update it? Oh, god damn it. There's issues here from 2021. Oh, come on, man. There's issues from 2016. Okay. This is how much engagement has this got? They've opened the pull request as well. Sorry, this is a bit like... How? That's very... Huh. Interesting. That's interesting, but also like annoying. You know what? We'll continue as we go. And I'm going to rant on this tutorial again at the end. Spring Boot attaches special meaning to a web security configurator adapter on the class annotated with Spring Boot application. It uses to configure security filter chain that carries the OAuth 2.0 authentication processor. The above configuration indicates a whitelist of permitted endpoints with every other endpoint requiring authentication you want to allow. Since that's the page you just made dynamic, with some of its content invisible to authenticated users /error, since that's a Spring Boot endpoint for displaying errors, and WebJar, since you'll want your JavaScript to run for all visitors unauthenticated or not. You won't see anything about /user in this configuration though. Everything, including /user, remains secure unless indicated because of the edit request authenticated configuration at the end. Finally, since we are interfacing with the backend of Ajax, we'll want to configure endpoints to respond with a 401 instead of the default behavior of redirecting to a login page. Configuring the authentication entry point achieves this for us. With those changes in place, the application is complete, and if you run it and visit the homepage, you should see a nicely styled HTML link to log in with GitHub. The link takes you not directly to GitHub, but to the local path that processes the authentication and sends you a redirect to GitHub. Once you have authenticated, you get redirected back to the local app, where it now displays your name, assuming you have set up your permissions in GitHub to allow access to that data. Nice. Adding a logout button in the section we modified the Click app. We built by adding a button that allows the user to log out of the app. This seems like a simple feature, but it requires a bit of care to implement, so it's worth spending some time discussing exactly how to do it. Most of the changes are to do with the fact that we are transforming the app from a read-only resource to a read-write one. Logging out requires a state change, so the same changes would be needed in a realistic application that wasn't just a static content. Which wasn't just static content. I don't know where the A came from, sorry. Client-side changes. On the client, we just need to provide a logout button and some JavaScript to call back to the server to ask for authentication to be cancelled first. In the authentication section of the UI, we add a button. So that's inside of index.html. It's in here. And I'm pretty sure we just chuck it down here. Oh, whoops, it's just overriding this whole bit. There we are. What's it calling that can't find? Oh, this bit. Okay, fair enough. And then we provide the logout function that it refers to in JavaScript. Okay. And then I just type this in. The logout function does a post to logout and then clears the dynamic content. Now we can switch over to the server side to implement that endpoint. Spring Security has built-in support for a logout endpoint, which is and invalidate a cookie. To configure the endpoint, we simply extend the existing configure method in our web security configure adapter. Okay, so I wanna get this working. No. We need a configuration class for it. Okay. Could I hack this together? I just want to see how it does this. I don't need that one. I could use this one. And then what does it do on the endpoints? Oh, it makes a user endpoint and okay. Okay. Mm-hmm. I think I can do this. I say that, but I don't know. I want to check the code. I just want to see if there is a version that's open that has it. Hang on. Because there could be just a pull request with updated tutorial, right? That works, that's cool. But also, like, I don't think anybody expected to have to look at source code with me to find that. Like, that's fine. I'll just drop this here. And then this is not supposed to be that, and that is supposed to be. So at override, that's supposed to say at beam. Then this is public security filter chain. Security filter chain. And then this is filter chain. Filter chain. And then HTTP security, that's fine, import class. And then any matches should still work. Oh, that ant match is not. Ant matches should still work. Why ain't you working? Interesting. There we are. I wonder why ant matches isn't working. Is it deprecated? No, it's there. I don't know why you're not working. Nope. Let me just. Cannot resolve method and matches in expression intercept URL registry. What does it do here? Context. Okay, so it does REST controller at the bottom, get mapping, HTTP status entry, security filter chain, yeah, OAuth2 user, authentication principle, HTTP secure. Oh, what? Yeah. Spring Boot application, HTTP status, yeah. HTTP security, yeah. Context bean, yeah. It should all be there. I don't know why I can't find this. What's wrong with this? Does it have a comma there? No. Hang on. Let me just see, is it this? No, it's the same. Interesting. That should work. HTTP security and matches. Oh, I don't even have a... Is it control back? No. 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 You know what? There we go. Let me just control click into this. Oh, bollocks. It's security matcher. No? Okay. Okay, let's just find all of them that... Okay, so that's headers, which I don't need. Cause, session management, port mapper, G, X509, remember me, authorize requests. What was that? Authorize requests? No. Authorize HTTP request, request cache, exception handling, security context, servlet API, CSRF, logout, anonymous, form login, SAML2 login, SAML2 logout, OAuth2 login, OAuth2 client, OAuth2 resource server, requires channel, HTTP basic, password management, authentication management, security matches, and so shouldn't it just be security matches? Huh? How can you not find it? I'm so baffed. It needs an and. Hang on. And security matcher. I have no idea what I'm doing. I found security matcher. Okay, what about any request? Authorize requests, any requests. So if I chuck an and in here, will that work? Nah. If I do dot any request, will that work there? And then dot security matcher? Nah, I don't know what I'm doing. Anyway, I'll just continue reading because I have no idea what I'm doing now. So I'm on the logout button. Logout requires endpoint. Sorry. Logout endpoint requires us to post to it and to protect the user from cross-site request forgery. It requires a token to be included in the request. The value of the token is linked to the current session, which is what provides the protection, so we need a way to get the data into our JavaScript. But it's often implemented a slightly different way than out of the box behavior. For instance, Anger, the front end would like the server to send it a cookie called X SRF token, and if it sees that, it will send the value back as a header named X SRF token. That's kind of like in Django as well, I think. We could implement the same behavior with our simple jQuery client, and then the server-side changes will work with other front-end implementations with no or very few changes. To teach Spring Security about this, we need to add a filter that creates the cookie in, and I can't do this. Adding this SRF token to the client. Since we are not using a high-level framework in this sample, you need to explicitly add the CSRF token, which we just made available as a cookie from the backend. To make this code a bit simpler, include the JS cookie library. So inside of my build Gradle, I can just chuck in an implement. Just like that. There we go. And then you can reference it in your HTML. So index HTML, I can do just at the top here. There we go. Finally, you can use cookies convenience method in the xhr index.html. So that would just be right here, I think, right? There. Ready to roll. With those changes in place, we're ready to run the app and try out the new login button. Start the app and load the home page. And the web browser window. Click on the login link, so it'll take you to your GitHub. If you already logged in, then you might not notice the redirect. Click on the logout button to cancel the current session and return to the app to an unauthenticated state. If you're curious, you should be able to see the new cookies and headers in the request that the browser exchanges with the local server. Remember that now the login endpoint is working with the browser client, then all of the other HTTP requests, post, put, delete, etc. will also work just as well. So this should be a good platform for application with some more realistic features. Login with GitHub. In the section, you'll modify the logout app you built already, adding a sticker page so that the end user can choose between multiple sets of credentials. Let's add a goal. Let's add goal as a second option for the user. The initial setup to use Google's OAuth 2.0 authentication for login. You must set up a project in Google's API console to obtain OAuth 2.0. I'm just going to preface this by saying I am not going to go to break again to actually make this, as I can't even get the first bit up because it relies on web security configure adapter. And from the pull request that I see, that is currently still open, which is a little annoying that it's still open even though it's been approved and everything. and this was made how many days ago? In October of 2022, and it is currently January of 2023. So this branch is fine. It has passed all checks. There are no conflicts with the base branch, but it has not been merged. Kind of annoyed. I say kind of when I mean I am very annoyed right now. Someone use it. I'm gonna reserve my judgment for the end of this live stream. Anyway, so follow the instructions on OpenID. So get your credentials, your client in secret, and do the same thing while you're setting up, like in GitHub. Add it to your client registration stuff. Then add the login page, login link over here. I mean up here, sorry. Brain, honestly. Then final path and URL should match the client's registration ID and application.yaml. Spring security sets the default parameter. How to add a local user database. Many applications need to hold data about their users locally. Even if authentication is delegated to an external provider, we don't show the code here, but it's easy to do in 2 steps. Choose a backend for your database and set up some repositories using Spring Data, say for a custom user object that suits your needs, can be populated fully or partially from external authentication. Implement and expose OAuth2 user service to call the authorization server as well as your database. Your implementation can delegate to the default implementation, which will do the heavy lifting of calling the authorization server. Your implementation should return something that extends your custom user object and implements OAuth2 user. Can add a field to the user object to link to a unique identifier in the external provider, not the username, but something that's unique to the account in the external provider. You could just make like a UUID or something. In this section, you'll modify the 2 providers app you built earlier to give some feedback to users that cannot authenticate. At the same time, you'll extend the authentication logic to include a rule that only users if they belong to a specific GitHub organization, allow users if they belong to a specific GitHub organization. The organization is a GitHub domain specific concept, but similar rules could be devised for other providers. For example, with Google, you might want to only authenticate users from a specific domain. For people that don't know what GitHub organizations are, if I could go to mine because I have a couple. For instance, this one with the RR logo, it's an organization that was made when I was in my final year university, where it's just like if we wanted to upload anything here, we can. It has some people that are part of this organization, one that's pending, collaborators, repositories. It just gives you like a central space outside of your own local repositories to dump stuff related to what you're working on. The 2 provider sample uses GitHub as a OAuth2 2.0 provider. So that's just like the client ID and secret that you would get from GitHub. Detecting an authentication failure in the client, that's just an error message, and if you do get an error, just redirect to it and display the error data inside the HTML. And then adding the endpoint and rendering that exception on that page and then making that endpoint. Generating a 401. 401 response will already be coming from Spring Security if the user cannot or does not want to log in with GitHub, so the app is already working if you fail to authenticate by rejecting the token grant. To spice things up a bit, you can extend the authentication rule to reject users that are not in the right organization. Oh, so you'd probably just like store what organization you're trying to match on, and then if they're not part of that organization, you would just reject their login, I'm guessing. You can use GitHub API to find out more about the user, so you need to plug in that into the right part of the authentication process. Fortunately, for simple use case, Spring Boot has provided an easy extension point. If you declare bean of type OAuth2 user service, it will be used to identify the user principal. You can use that hook to assert the user is in the correct organization and throw an exception if not. Not GitHub, the equals request get registration ID, okay. User get access token, organization's URL, get URL, get URI URL attributes OAuth2 client retrieve body tune and block. If any match spring project equals org.login. Okay, so this is just checking that because this is storing it inside the orgs, right, as a list, and then it's just saying that you're conveying orgs to a stream, which is just saying that you want to access all of the data, so you're just iterating through it, kind of. And then if anything matches for each individual object inside that list, spring dash projects, you will let them through, otherwise you will return an error. I was gonna say, how would you know what organization the user is in? And that answers my question. They're just hard coding the organization that they want to check on. So if you're not part of the spring projects organization, you'll always get an error code. So if I were to run this, if I was able to run this, I would be given an error screen because I'm not part of the spring dash projects organization. But if I changed that field there to a different organization that I was a part of, like the Rapid Reps one, then I would be able to log in correctly and not see an error screen. Makes sense. Dependent on web client instance or accessing GitHub API on behalf of the authenticated user. Having done that, it loops over the organization looking for one that matches. Literally just what I said. The Spring projects, that is the organization that is used to store Spring open source projects. You can just substitute your own value there if you want to be able to authenticate successfully and you are not in Spring engineering team. If there is no match, if there is an exception and this is picked up by Spring security and is turned into a 401, web client has to be created as a bean as well, but that's trivial because its ingredient are all auto-wireable by virtue of having used the OAuth2 client. I just wanted to say, this is very allocation heavy for what it's doing right here, because fair enough is doing a list of map strings with objects. It's saying that you want to make a map with a string and an object and then store that inside of a list, right? That's fine. So you're saying you want to get the URI, which is just the URL, get its attributes, retrieve the organization that person is in, and then store it as a string with that object for the organization the user is in, right? I mean, with that user object, I believe. No, not their user object. So this is just string. The string is the organization URL, yeah, and then the object is, what is the object? Is it just the organization's like the structure of the organization, like in what's it called? Because each one will have its own data, right? And you're only trying to get the organization. So I believe what it's doing is it's getting each URL from the organization's URL, storing that as a string, and storing all of the data about that organization as an object. I think. I just wanted to say, it could just do, instead of doing this stream and then any match, it could just make a for loop iterating through entry key set, sorry, to check if the key is the same. If it's the same, then it could just return the user. If it's not the same, then it could just throw this. But converting it to a stream is fine. Actually, I could check that. Converting to I remember covering this in university, but I can't remember now. Ah, yeah, I was right. It does do a shit ton of allocations, because when you're just doing a for loop, you're already saying that you want to access this object, right? So you're not always creating a new object every time you're iterating. When you're converting to a stream, you're basically making a headless mob, and this is anonymous lambda, but it's literally just a headless lambda where you're generating an object that has no parent, to do something. So every time you're iterating, you're just creating a new object for each one. So yeah, they might execute in the same amount of time, but you're using more memory for no reason. Well, technically you are using it for a reason. You're using it because it looks a lot nicer and there's like less code on the screen that you've written. Readability wise, I'm guessing it's a lot easier to read. Maintainability wise, probably the same as just using a for loop, but in terms of like allocations, it's way heavy. I'm guessing, from what I just read. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it does also make it a little harder to debug. It's not like the end of the world. Because when you're debugging it, you'll instead of like seeing the loop finish, you'll like seeing like with the loop you'll have like different steps, right? With this, it will be like because you're using a lambda, it just keeps jumping on the same line, so you might not know maybe, but debugging wise, I don't. If it's like calling multiple methods from that lambda, then yeah, it's a lot harder to debug. But if it's just like the one that was in here, where it's not really calling any other method, it's just saying check if it's the same and then return, it's not that bad. But in terms of allocations, it's still a little heavier. That's fine. Now obviously the code above can be general. Okay, okay. We have seen how to use Spring Boot and Spring Security to build out apps in a number of styles with very little effort. The main theme running through all of the samples is authentication using an external OAuth 2.0 provider. All of the sample apps can be easily extended and reconfigured for more specific use cases, usually with nothing more than a configuration path change. Remember, if you use versions of the samples in your own service to register on GitHub and get credentials for your own host addresses, remember not to put those credentials in source control. Yeah, that's why I'm not gonna post this online. I'm not gonna, I mean, the live stream is of course online, but I'm not gonna put this in my version control because you literally have to hard code your secret key inside of the application.yaml. But we've been going for an hour 16 minutes, hour 17 minutes. I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant again, sorry, but if you're watching my videos anyway, you already know that I rant all the time anyway. This one was pretty good in terms of like getting you to do OAuth, because OAuth is a little bit tricky to use, and it's also having interact with an API, which I think is pretty decent. Again, my issue with this is, why is this tutorial not updated? That is my only issue with all of these tutorials so far. If they're relying on packages that are currently deprecated, they should have some type of deprecation warning at the very beginning of each tutorial. Because let's say that you're starting from the first tutorial, right? Cool. If they had one there and you go through it like I've been doing it, fair enough. But if you're starting each one differently, or you're just choosing a random tutorial, you're not going to see that deprecation warning unless you go to the very beginning. Secondly, I understand that they're a company, right? So they're probably maintaining other projects too. Again, this is a tutorial, and if people were to use this tutorial, it is still difficult to say, hey, use the tutorial, when you don't know what versions of the stuff to use are. And I don't think this has like memory. I'm gonna check actually, because if I go on my phone and it still says Gradle instead of Maven when I'm trying to like go on the website for Start Spring. On my phone, it defaults to Gradle, Groovy, Java, and version 3.0.2 for Spring. So this isn't and it defaults to Java 17. So Java 17 aside, because the differences aren't from Java 17 to Java 19, do not break this package. They are just shipping it this way, and the default that they are shipping is 3.0.2. If that is the case, and I'm assuming that is the case, it is not. I don't think I am wrong in saying that they should update this tutorial if they're referring to people that should be using 2.7.8. Because if people should be using 2.7.8, they should default this, that's the start spring.io, to not select 3.0.2 but to select 2.7.8. I'm saying that because it's defaulted to Groovy, Java, and 3.0.2. So I'm not sure if who they're tailoring Start Spring for. Like, maybe it'll be different if I use the CLI utility, but if the defaults for the online one are just 3.0.2 and the tutorial isn't working, maybe preface what version you should be using. Other than that, I think tutorial's pretty good. I'm always just hammering on about this dependency resolution because, like fair enough, I went through the GitHub, the repo, and looked at the pull request because, like, I just wanted to see if it was there. So you never know. This could be just resolved by like copy pasting from the repo in the pull request. But again, this is a tutorial. I don't think like people who are trying to learn it, especially if they don't know or have used GitHub and like would know that, oh, this tutorial is out of date, maybe they should just like check a pull request to see if there's something to update this. Like, I don't think that's a valid excuse. And like, for that pull request to not be merged in 3 months since it's been opened. Yeah, it's not even January, it's February. I was being nice. They've had plenty of time to merge that pull request. Like, I have a pull request that's been open for a year. Like, and that's not on. I understand, like, some developers just aren't active. Like, if you got a full-time job and everything, then fair enough. But Spring is its own company, right? Anyway, that's my mini rant over. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, leave a like on. I can't be asked to do like the full outro, so I'll just do my short one anyway. Like, subscribe, enjoy the rest of your day, and peace.